Greetings, it is time for another monthly update on the EV transition, which is the biggest technological transition going on in the world right now, the most impactful technological disruption going on in the world right now. And that is why I do an update about this almost every month. And the speed of this disruption is also rapid enough that a monthly update is warranted. So as always, we start with my Atom Award of the Month for December 2018. So people seeing this for the first time should watch the next couple of minutes, but if you have watched many of the prior monthly update videos, you may want to skip ahead a couple of minutes. So I wrote this article in December of 2018 predicting that the EV electrical vehicle transition was going to be extremely rapid from this point. If you go down to images like this one, this was an image as of December 2018, and you could see how quickly the EV sales numbers were rising. Each of these months was the months of a respective year, as you can see in this lower legend over here, from 2010 all the way through 2018, and you can see this rapid rise. Now, as we will see later in this video, 2018 becomes the first year in the subsequent chart that we're going to see, but for now 2010 to 2018, a rapid rise, almost 50 to 100% a year in many cases, albeit from a very small base. So you go back to the article. I also pointed out how commercial and government vehicles were going to have to be the inflection point for the normalization of EVs, because individual purchase decisions are one thing, but when an entire fleet of government or commercial vehicles decides to go EV, that creates a lot more volume and economies of scale and normalization. For example, the United States has 800,000 police cars and 210,000 US Postal Service vans. If all of those were EVs, that would be a dramatic change, because that would be a lot of gasoline that is no longer being consumed and has moved over to electric. And these types of vehicles are very suitable for electric because the US Postal Service van, it has to make 100 stops every day. Every few feet it makes a stop. Police cars are driving around all day, but usually don't go very far from their main office because they are the police of just one particular town. And if it's a relatively small town, they stay within a small area that they patrol. And after that, there are private sector numbers such as 110,000 UPS vehicles, 60,000 FedEx vehicles, and perhaps as many as 300,000 pizza delivery vehicles. And now you have DoorDash and things like that as well. So once these go to electric, then it's easier for individual consumers to go to electric vehicles, for sure. Now, why is this transition happening so quickly? Well, for that, we go to this battery chart. This chart is from The Economist, and the data is from the US Department of Energy. And look at the chart on the right-hand side. It's the more important of the two. From 2008 to 2022, which is right now, battery cost was projected to fall by a factor of 10, from $1,000 per kilowatt hour to 100, so a 10x improvement. But also look at the maroon scale on the right-hand side. Battery energy density was to rise from 100 watt hours per liter to 400, so a 4x increase. So if you combine the two, 10x improvement here and 4x improvement here, you get a 40x improvement in the cost effectiveness of the batteries of an electrical vehicle. 40x. That is why electric vehicles are getting better and better every year almost. And that is why you're seeing a rapid growth rate of 50 to 100% increase in unit sales year over year when you take a specific month into account to account for seasonality. And to see what the latest data is, we now go to the article at Inside EVs. So here is our Inside EV article. And the title of the article is Global Plug-in Electric Car Sales Increased 38% in April 2022. 38%. So what are the details behind those numbers? We see this over here. Battery electric vehicles increased 47% year over year. Plug-in hybrid electric vehicles increased 22% year over year. So battery electric vehicles are in fact increasing faster than plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, because plug-in hybrid electric vehicles were an interim technology that was useful in a certain number of corner cases, but as battery ranges are improving more and more, the cases in which a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle would have been useful are shrinking, so they are being superseded by battery electric vehicles. And we see the grand total over here of 38% growth year over year and 10.2% market share for EVs. So what are the details behind the individual months? For that, we go to this chart over here. Now this chart is complicated to interpret, so let me explain how it works. Just like you saw in the chart in the original article at The Futurist, that was for some earlier years. This is a chart of 2018 through 2022, depicting individual months by a different color code. This smooths out any seasonality because some months are higher for car buying, some months are lower. But as you can see over here, the red bars are 2022, and they're so much higher than 2018 that 2018 is virtually nothing. It's basically 6x to 10x higher than 2018, even though, as we saw in the chart in the early part of this video, 2018 was the high year relative to 2012, obviously. So this is now 10% of new cars as EVs and rising. And that means we are very close to a shatter point in the internal combustion engine economy. Once a certain number of cars become electric vehicles, the entire oil, gasoline, gas station paradigm completely declines and has to downsize, which is going to be difficult for them because there's a lot of dead capital locked up in that industry. And remember, EV sales would be even higher than they are now if there wasn't a supply shortage of electric vehicles. Given how high oil prices are and gasoline prices are, EV sales would be even higher, so that catch up will occur very quickly once supply catches up. So we really are within a year or two of a major shatter point in the internal combustion engine economy. This is going to manifest in Europe and East Asia before the US, of course, because out of this market share that we see of electrical vehicles, the United States is still at only 4.4% of new cars being electrical vehicles, but Europe and East Asia are much higher. The spike in oil prices, as I speak about on this channel, is due to a combination of two things. One is the Biden administration stopping domestic oil and natural gas production, thereby increasing prices domestically and worldwide, which then causes a petrostate like Russia to become emboldened and embark on wars that they've been wanting to do for a long time, but oil prices were not high enough to generate the revenues for them in which they felt bold enough to do that. Russia attacked Ukraine in 2014 as well, which was the last time oil was above $100 a barrel. Now that it's above $100 a barrel again, they are emboldened and can do that. However, they are hastening the demand destruction of oil even faster because you see EVs rising in sales volume very, very rapidly, and we are extremely close to a shatter point of this internal combustion engine economy. If you think about it, oil is a very limited technology because about 15% of all oil is consumed in just the extraction, transportation, and refinement of oil. 15% of oil is consumed just in getting it out of the ground and converted into gasoline and distributed to the end user. That already tells you that's a very wasteful technology. As I've spoken about in other videos, there was a time when we did not have freezers and ice blocks were chopped out of cold weather places and then transported via ship thousands of miles to tropical locations where they could not have ice otherwise, and that was a big business, and that seems very strange by today's standards, but the notion that oil should be extracted from the ground and then transported 8,000 miles from the Persian Gulf to Houston, Texas is equally absurd, and people in the future will find that to be just as absurd as the practice of transporting ice blocks from New Hampshire all the way down to the Caribbean, and in some cases all the way over to India, 10,000 miles away. And remember all the tertiary effects of this disruption. The amount of gas station land in the United States that is used for that purpose is huge. Even though the number of gas stations in the US has fallen by half relative to the 1980s, the remaining gas stations occupy prime land on high traffic street corners because they have to be proximate to the traffic. All that land could be freed up once gas stations start to shut down, and depending where you live, you already may be noticing gas stations shutting down. Now, within this 15% of new car sales being EVs, there's a lot of geographic variance. In the United States, it's still only 5% of new cars as electrical vehicles, although in places like California, it's 15% or more. However, in Europe, as well as East Asia, namely Japan and China, it is already 25 to 30% of new cars that are electric vehicles, so gas stations are shutting down. And in the United States, gas stations actually take up a lot of land, so all that land will be freed up and can be repurposed for something else, as I speak about in other monthly updates of this nature. Remember that the technological advantages of EVs are so many that the year-over-year improvement that we saw earlier in this video is what is causing this conversion of low-tech to high-tech. The accelerating technomic medium of the world, the atom, is now reacting to this breakaway technology because internal combustion engines were improving at just 1% a year, while EVs are improving at about 8% a year or so. And this accelerates when oil is made artificially high by poor governmental decisions in the United States, and then nefarious actions by an oil exporting state like Russia. And other oil exporters who seemed well behaved for a few years while oil prices were low are going to get new ideas now that oil prices are high again, but they are rapidly destroying the last remaining demand of oil, and their revenue will shrink further once oil falls again. Despite the stoppage of US oil and natural gas production, that only destroys demand sooner when oil prices are higher. So this disruption is extremely huge in implications, and that is why Tesla is a $1.1 trillion market cap company, despite selling a number of cars that is much smaller than the big internal combustion engine manufacturers that exist in the world today, because it represents a conversion of low tech to high tech. And the fact that one company is somewhat of a leader in this space means it does justify a huge valuation. It is in fact at the forefront of an atom disruption, and the closer you are to a true atom disruption, the greater your multiple in terms of valuation of company in relation to revenue can be. And we'll talk about that in other videos that get into the hard finance of high tech. So a lot of exciting topics to come on this channel, exciting times, and we are watching a major technological disruption unfold right before our eyes. Now, if you like this type of content, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Thank you very much for watching.